All right, welcome back to the Ship GTM podcast. As always, my name is Aman, and then I'm joined today with Cameron here.
Hey everyone.
Awesome. So I think today's topic, I think will be really interesting to look into is total cost of ownership. I feel like this is something that a lot of folks have been kind of thinking about as they kind of move away from, let's say, just bringing on a bunch of like SaaS vendors to run their GTM stack, and then into like building more internal tools. Something that we've been doing a lot at Vercel, right, as GTM engineers. And that's another
Yeah.
thing. Also, I think the label is kind of shifting. Like GTM engineers, maybe at one time, like a few years ago, before AI, really was just folks who were like working as like in operations, like tying together no code tools with CRMs and different marketing tools. Where now, like the stuff that you and I are doing is just like regular software engineering with AI inside of GTM.
Yeah, completely.
Um,
Yeah, I think a lot of people are talking about it too, like especially with the emergence of AI being able to code and write code so well. Like, is it worth it to just like vibe code your own process or platform, or do you still need to like go through a vendor? So yeah, we'll get into all of that.
yeah. So I think the biggest thing we can probably kick off is like stuff that So Cam and I have been building these things for some time now. So we have a bit of a perspective on like where we can actually see like real ROI and not just kind of the marketing, the vibes that are out there on Twitter. Something a little bit more tangible we can probably bring. But one thing, it's like the interesting part about switching to more internal tools is also you kind of change your cadence in the GTM stack. So if I bring in Clay, if I bring in N8N, if I bring in Trey, then like myself, if I'm a marketer or if I'm somebody that's in GTM, like a sales leader, I can go in and modify that tool if I need to. But I don't get that opportunity with like internal tools mostly, right?
Yeah.
Typically before, because like you need a software engineer to build these internal tools, they would need to go like, create a ticket, work on it, like you get it into the queue, do QA. Um, like maybe you can, you want to like dig into like maybe how that's changed today, like with AI.
Yeah, definitely. I think like a lot of it, I think there's a push as an industry with software to kind of make things more headless anyway, because I think people are craving this more. Where there's like a platform, and then to interact with it, there was like very proprietary. You had to like use their UI, or same with like N8N, where it's like you use kind of their flow. It's all open source, I guess, but something like Zapier is not open source, right? So it's like to interact with Zapier, you have to use the UI, you have to create something. But then it's kind of shifted to where I think like there's more of an appetite for using the API. But like you said, like there's still limitations. Like if you're using a platform like Salesforce, then you're limited by just like the access that they give you to your data via like their APIs. But then if you own that whole thing, then you basically have like unlimited access to be able to do whatever you'd like to. So really, the sky's the limit because you're not limited by some platform or an external engineering team. You just kind of own the full stack, which I think is really cool. I think that's like a big reason why people go internal. In a past role, I worked on like helped kind of a CRM that was like custom built, and there were like a lot of kind of issues with building it internally because it was like a big cost, but at the same time it was just like totally flexible because we could do whatever we want. And that was like before AI. So I think it's even changed more now where it's like there's way more incentive to do that now that it's easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you think about general costs, right? So like let's say you have like I think we can speak anecdotally. I haven't actually seen numbers, but like let's say I even have Gong, for example. The Gong is a really fun example here. What, 200K contract, right?
Yeah. 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 Depending on the size of the company. Yeah. Easily.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so then if you were to like look at like, okay, we want to like reorient our GTM engineering stack, we want to make internal tools, we want to do this stuff. You basically have like two options, right? Like you got to have infrastructure. And I think for a lot of reasons, like we'd probably bias, like you should probably use Vercel.
Yeah.
Just because of like what you can do and like how they've set it up with like serverless, like the infrastructure becomes a non-problem when you use Vercel. So that's like one part of it. The other part of it is like you have to have expertise of where do you get it. So it's either going to be like consulting services, like professional services somehow, or you're going to have an engineer in house in seat that you will hire. Even at the high end, which is probably like bringing in somebody full time, like what is like 150K?
Yeah. To kind of build something like that on your own.
Yeah, just to have an engineer.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd probably, yeah, probably. I mean, I guess it kind of depends on like the experience and everything, but yeah, probably like 150 to 200K,
Okay.
like the cost there.
And then for infrastructure, like the big difference here also is like these are all like on infrastructure and Vercel, it's all on demand, right? It's it's all on demand usage. Like you're not really tied to like big commitments or even
Yeah.
enterprise tier. Like you're just negotiating like how much usage you're going to spend.
Yeah, totally. I think there's like an appetite for that too as an industry where like this value of just paying for what you use rather than paying for like a seat. Seat-based pricing has like kind of been the historical SaaS model where you procure a platform and then you're paying less on usage, maybe some usage like with certain like data warehousing products, but then you're still paying the seat for like your users at your company. But yeah, it's like, now with AI, we're just paying for token. And so I think there's like maybe a broader appetite to just like only pay for what you use. I think that's the beauty of building it internally is like you literally pay for what you use and there's like no like margin for that really, right? Because it's like you're just paying for the underlying infrastructure. For Vercel, if like you're building a platform on Vercel, like infrastructure as a service, then I guess you're paying for, Vercel, but then like the value you get is so much greater than you can move so much faster, right? I think that the values are like there, just such a good product. Um, yeah, but definitely, I think there's definitely like the cost benefit, but I think overall with AI, I think it brings it down to where it's like almost an order of magnitude, maybe not cheaper, but you can move faster. So because you can move faster, you can do way more, right, with limited resources. So like one engineer could totally like build a platform to just like replace a tool and then maintain that, which is easily, I think, worth it if you are increasing the value of the like customizability, right, of the platform. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like one example, like we have, we have this agent that we've, I guess, Vercel CEO has spoken about, which is the lead agent. Essentially, we had 10 SDRs running that. So they were basically managing the entire inbound queue that Vercel was receiving, and that could be like hundreds to thousands like per week, which is
Yeah.
quite a large amount. And now a team of 10 is down to a team of one, and so we've moved everyone else up to higher level accounts. Running the phones, things that are just like higher value, right? LinkedIn messaging, and then we have one person with one AI, and the AI is handling the bulk of the work, and the AI never sleeps and never gets tired. It's just kind of 24 hours running, and the only cost on our end really is, I mean, we still have one SDR, but and then there's some like token costs, but like the overall compute footprint is actually relatively small. Also,
Yeah.
like actually most of the cost really is just the LLMs. And then if you were to compare that to like how would this look like if we were doing a Zapier flow, like you'd buy seats, and then they'd also do they charge for compute, or would
Yeah,
they
I think
charge for
like
integration?
actions or something, how many
Yeah,
actions you push. Yeah.
and so like they're just adding margin on everything that you're doing on top of their platforms, whereas here like it's it's a it's a person that you'll hire and you're trained, and they're human, so you can get a lot more like efficiencies out of like a someone live in seat,
Yeah.
because they can think, they can adapt to situations, whereas like Zapier is never going to do that.
Yeah. No,
Um,
it's totally. I think too, like something that people gloss over when using something like Zapier, Innate or Tray. Maybe I guess like these non-open source ones. I mean, even Innate kind of has like a proprietary way that they're building the nodes and everything that you're
mhm.
linking together for these automations. It's their own like JSON format or whatever. But when you use something that's like closed source that the LLM doesn't have access to, an LLM can't have access to, then you're kind of like just creating tech debt. Like even like we're both very technical people and we jump into like a monster Zapier flow that someone on like RevOps or sales has created, it's going to take us like hours to sift through it and like go through the whole control flow. And then you can't just like pass that to Zapier. Maybe you can take a screenshot, right? But it's like this archaic way of like passing this context over to the agent. But if it's written as code, especially something that's like well documented, that the models know well, because a lot of these big companies like Vercel, Cloudflare, AWS are working with model providers to give like good training data for the models to know these SDKs. It's just it'll be able to grok it really well, and then understand it, and then just like change it. So I think that like just the iteration speed that you can move at is like way faster with these code first tools, because the LLM, it's just a better abstraction for the LLMs to use. At least that's my opinion. That's what I've seen so far.
And actually, and you raised a good point. I was like, think about it this way: like when you have to bring in like a Zapier or something, it's not like you can avoid paying Zapier. You still have to pay for
Yeah.
Zapier, and it's not like it's going to run itself. You still have to have I guess would typically be called a GTM engineer or like a marketing ops person or someone in RevOps, sit down, full salary, manage that tool, hook up the tools, like
Yeah.
wire the integrations, wire in the CRM. So you don't really, you're actually just paying more, right? You have to spend paying the same amount. Um, and yeah, I mean, you really raised a good point there. It's like you can't get away from that. Like, and then if you are on a totally customized system, like sky's the limit what you can do.
But yeah, and no shade to like the those platforms that are like traditionally kind of no code, because I think that like for that time when they emerged, I think it was like very indicative of where the market was at. Like there was no better way to do it, right? Like you couldn't give 5 years ago a RevOps person or non-technical sales role like access to a code base and say like build this automation. It's just like doesn't make sense. But Zapier bridged that gap. But I think now like the knowledge gap is filled with AI. Like it can do that, right? And then you just need the high level instruction on what it needs to do. Um, but yeah, totally agree. Like you're going to be doing those two things anyway, maintaining the workflow and then having to pay for something. You might as well eliminate one. Like you can now just build the workflow and just only pay for the compute.
That's
So
actually a really interesting point. Is like almost like by locking up the workflows, while you do get like an immediate like productivity boost because anyone can go in there and see the workflow at least, but they're just so complicated and I guess in the age of AI, because it's not really text based, it's kind of an anti pattern for LLMs, right? So it's almost like
yeah,
you're future proofing your business because at the end of the day, if something's in a text file, like really how much of a difference is it if it's like laid out in like a visual 3D with like boxes and arrows versus it's just like in a text file. And if it's in a text file, I can have AI read it. But if it's in a
yeah,
SaaS tool that you have to log into and then it has a visual representation, LLMs are smart and they're getting there, right? With like Cloud Cowork, but it's not as easy of like it can just like read the JSON file or read a text file and like make updates to it or like tell you what's
yeah,
happening. Like
yeah. It's like going an extra step,
yeah,
like
I've been
eliminate
in
the middleman.
so many like workflows I've seen. They're like really impressive with what they do, but like yeah, like you said, like we're technical, we live in code, but I gotta sit there and read what the hell's happening in this entire
Yeah,
workflow to figure out intent because there's like a million different like control points, like branching paths. It's pretty crazy.
yeah. No, definitely. I think too, like developers kind of have this aptitude for like wanting to try out tools and having like an appetite to do so. But I don't think that, I mean, in our experience, I feel like a lot of people in sales, marketing roles, it's not necessarily that they want to learn a new platform anyway, right? Like whatever's easiest for them. And
Yeah,
so, yeah. And then I think is a challenge of maybe like building internal tools sometimes is like, if you build a custom solution, then maybe there's some like enablement that has to happen internally for you to like get people to use it properly because they're so used to another tool. Like maybe everyone does use Salesforce, right? Or HubSpot. And so like then they hop into like a custom CRM system and there's definitely like a learning curve initially to get them back to the point where they can just do their jobs because they have to learn it. So I think that's like maybe a downside, but I think it can be resolved, right? Like if the software is good or it actually like helps someone to do their job better and does the core need, then I think that the value is definitely there.
I think one really big advantage of these internal tools is like kind of to that point. Like we've seen this also. Like a lot of the tools that we build try to like as much as we can hook into like an existing surface that folks are already using.
Yeah.
But, like when you have something like Koala, for example, let's say, or like RP Koala, or I don't know, like
Yeah.
pick another tool. Like you've got some enrichment tools somewhere, um, and let's say it's like really helpful, right? Like let's say you just purchase Harmonic and you grab some seats for your team, but now like the data lives in Harmonic, so you got to go app.harmonic.com, and let's say you're an SDR or you're an AE, and like you have to have either a GTM engineer to like port over the data from Harmonic over to your Salesforce or Hotspot so that they can look at it because the AE is in the CRM loading up the list and like going through the contacts.
Yeah.
Now that's like I got to go over to Harmonic for data over here, or go to Clay over here for enrichment data. Maybe it's in the CRM somewhere, and so all the data is like spread out. And with internal tools, because you build them, you run like all the services that they can integrate with. Like it's much easier time to just like, hey, our team likes to use Slack. We'll create a Slack bot instead of like
Yeah.
waiting for Harmonic to kind of get it done for you. You can
Yeah,
just build that surface into your business, or maybe it could be
totally.
even a Salesforce extension or whatever, right? Like you have way more flexibility.
Yeah, you bring up a good point too, because I think that every team has their own process of like how they do things, and every company kind of does. I think that's something I know we've talked about this, like a difference between maybe sales, GTM versus like traditional EPD, engineering and product, where like engineering's pretty solved for the most part as far as a process. Like wherever you're going to go, you're going to have like your version control, your Git server, and then you're going to have your where your code lives, and then you're going to have like a deployment pipeline, CI/CD, and then wherever your infra is. And then it's like you can kind of expect that that's going to happen, but you can hop into like 10 different sales orgs and it's like all going to be different. Like maybe the CRMs are largely the same, but it's like, what are we using for enrichment? Different. Like what's like the kind of like indicators that the companies like that the people in sales are looking for might be different. How do we track that? Might be different. Like it's just all different. So I think that like maybe that's why we haven't seen I would say there's like not a lot of sales tools that are just kind of like one size fits all for all orgs. It's often like kind of niche things that match one or two ways that an org works. But I think internal tools match that perfectly because then you have just flexibility. Like you can adapt the tool to the process that the company has rather than trying to like retrofit it the other way around.
Yeah, and I think like also with I mean, the AI really changes the game because like whereas before it may be like these iteration cycles took a while, right? Like
Yeah.
if you want some new permutation because like the sales process changed, or we just found a brand new sales play that like a motion that works really well. Like it'll take time to kind of get that into an internal tool because like developer has to manually like actually it's crazy to think about like write a ton of code by hand, like test it, validate it, go through the whole like software development lifecycle, and then they can publish it. So in that case, like oh yeah, dude, it's so obvious. Just like just build a Zapier workflow. It's so much
Yeah.
easier. It's so much quicker. But now it's like fast. You get the AI in there. I mean, like the tools that we build, like I feel like most of my code is now being written by AI, and I'm just like looking at the outputs. Like, does the code generally look good? Because I'm still like opinionated about how it generally like looks. Does it function? Does it do what I want it to do? And then I just push it up. And
Yeah.
now we have PR review bots also. There's like machines that will do a first pass of the code after it's been published. So all these like things just like really drastically like shorten the loop cycles.
Yeah.
Just move way
Totally.
faster.
Yeah, and on that same point, like Drew Bredvik, who leads GTM engineering at Vercel, he talked about this like I think to us not long ago, and he had a good point where like the software work that we're doing is like pretty solved. Like it's a solved thing. It's not like we're doing cutting edge algorithms that are going to cut our P99 values on our CDN, right? Like it's nothing like that. It's like we're just building like tools. Like it's all stuff that like is pretty much solved. But, like the business application is kind of like the secret sauce where it's like finding the right places to like automate, finding the right places to squeeze these things in. So yeah, it's like, we're building a lot of things with AI and it's not necessarily like the code that's so magical. It's more of just like getting the right tool to fit the right job, which I think is like an art in itself. But it's like why, tools like Vercel, like we build at Vercel, Vercel on Vercel, and so it's like tools like Vercel allow us to move so fast because we don't have to worry about these things that we don't really care to solve. Like we're not really in the business of making these like dev tool primitives on our team. On a GTM engineering team, it's more like let's build a solution for like a specific business problem. Um, so yeah, I think it totally makes sense like for internal tools in that regard too.
When do you think it doesn't make sense to like build an internal tool? Like at like let's say you're head of a startup, you run some marketing, or why at what point you're like, no, actually it definitely doesn't make sense. So we should just buy something in this scenario.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I feel like there's like if we were to like graph it out of when the size versus like when you need to, I feel like a tiny startup might even be at the top where it's like maybe you do need to make a custom tool because like if you don't have a ton of money, like a lot of these things are just expensive. So it's but your internal tool might just be like a Google sheet, right? Like I think a lot of small businesses just run on something super simple like that, and that would be like an internal tool. But as far as like software, I'd probably say like I think there's probably a critical mass where you kind of you without even noticing you start to kind of make your own internal tools. Like I think that maybe like that series B, series C's, like as far as startups go, that's when I feel like you start to realize like, wow, we've kind of outgrown using our CRM as like a data warehouse. Like we need to start kind of like moving this stuff out. We're growing our sales motion. We need to start like building more and kind of custom tooling. I feel like it kind of naturally happens. So I'd say like size wise that, but my argument for like when I think it's worth it, and there's like the classic Peter Thiel talks about this in 0 to 1, where he talks about like for there to be a solid market to go after as a startup, it has to be your solution has to be like an order of magnitude better than what exists. I think it's like a pretty good heuristic of building internal tools. Like if you're going to get like an order of magnitude more value um, in building an internal tool, then I think it's worth it. Like in the case of Vercel, like we totally got that, right? We built an internal agent that 10x or reduced from 10 to 1, like the number of SDRs working inbound. And then like some of the tools we have where we've replaced vendors easily 10x cheaper as far as like the cost we're paying, and we have more flexibility. Obviously that's like minus engineering costs, but I think that's like a pretty good heuristic. So I'd say those two things. Size probably matters a lot, and then yeah, like the value you're getting.
I also I like to add to like that. There's some things that we definitely never tried to build, which is like we
Yeah.
never really tried to replace Salesforce. Like Salesforce will always exist; it'll always be there. We'll change like views, right? So like one of the projects that we built is a custom CRM that's on top of Salesforce, but it's just a view, it's just a surface on it
Yeah.
because like Salesforce still is like canonical GTM source of truth for everything. Um, like we, I think I tweeted about this. Like we replaced, not replaced actually. We built a totally, from scratch auto outbound system that basically like expands. You can, I think mentally the way I look at it is like it expands the surface area of lifecycle emails to things that are like typically now like more GTM focused, like product signups or like visiting pricing pages. But like I think the hook there, the catch there is like we didn't really replace outreach, right? Which is like the tool that
Yeah.
we're using. Outreach still exists. Same thing. Like it is another source of truthy type tool that's a really hard to replace. We have a lot of attribution there that helps with like forecasting and looking at how many like things are being sent out, who's responding, who's replying. So that just remained. The only thing we did was like hook up to their APIs and then just build on top of that this outbounding motion, just using all the same guardrails and everything that they already had built in there. So like maybe at a certain point it would make sense. Like once you get, I think maybe it's super like dependent on the company,
Yeah. Totally.
but I can't imagine like it's such a time investment to build something like that, which ultimately is like kind of commoditized software anyway.
Yeah.
So there'd have to be like a really good reason to want to like start working that out. Actually, you've kind of started it with I don't know if you can talk about it now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
using
Yeah.
like the Zoom, art, what is it? The real time API.
Yeah. Real time search API. Yeah. I think there's a lot of primitives of like these companies that where they're proving their value. Like Zoom, like they're starting to release this. I think it's maybe GA now, but it's like the RTMS API, right? So it's like you can get live transcripts. Think about how many tools that displaces of like that were kind of a wrapper on top of Zoom. And then also like to your point about uh, outreach, it's like outreach like has so much value because they're managing so much. To my knowledge of like the email sending, like email infrastructure is like really hard to like manage at scale. It's like we're not in any business that's like it's like does not make sense for our business, and we're not in the business of like email infrastructure. So like we'll let them handle that. Same with like Salesforce, like they have a lot of security things figured out that we don't want to have to deal with. Snowflake, right? Like no one's going to go build their own data warehouse. It just doesn't make sense to at a scale. So I think yeah, it's like maybe this is a whole like other podcast episode, but like when is like a startup like really providing value? When is a company really providing value? Because like they've proved their value because it's like such solid tech, or it's like such a solid product that like we don't even have any interest in replacing it. And then maybe there's like some network effects with it as well, where it's like it just doesn't make sense to replace. But yeah, I think that some things make sense to replace and some things just don't at all.
Yeah. Those
Yeah,
like core infrastructure GTME stuff probably good to replace. And to be honest, like
yeah,
we still have like I think there needs to be some workflow tool in there, right? Like Tray and it or something, because you're probably gonna
mhm.
want to just like wire up something quick and not have this like app, right? That you want to build. Like it's just like a quick like we need to import a list, or we've got some Salesforce automations. We want to like enroll people in campaigns for whatever reason. Small stuff like that, like or even like larger like thing. Like I think Salesforce campaigns are actually like could be like pretty massive endeavors. Still, probably makes more sense to have that in a trade workflow.
Yeah,
Something more typical like for a RevOps org. It's
totally.
only like
Yeah.
what else can we juice? What else can we get out of this? That's like that we have to break out of this like workflow mold. Then I'd say, like, let's go grab an internal tool. Let's grab an engineer and build something custom.
Yeah. Well, one example of this too, and not to beat a dead horse, but like basically we at my last company we had like there were a lot of these like Zapier workflows that were getting like lots of volume, and so like the engineering team didn't build them out initially. Someone else built them, and then they would come to us when it's like, hey, we're getting like a million invocations on this, and it's costing the company like 50K, a year just for this one workflow. And so then we'd just take it and then just literally like migrate it to a Lambda function on AWS. And then, the cost goes down instantly because like it was just so much cheaper to run it as like a function on AWS. But I think it's like that's a pretty good workflow too of like, and we kind of see that with GTM engineering at Vercel, where people will build these internal tools or they'll use something or a tray workflow or something, and then they'll go like, okay, we should probably productionize this more, and so then they can pass it off to us, and then we'll do that. And I think there's like great cost reduction there as well to not like, and it's probably good, to like have a more engineering capacity, like manage something that's as critical as something like that. Because if you're offloading it to something like Zapier on a credit card plan, it can be a little dangerous.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. That makes so much sense. Yeah, and I think like life has a way of balancing everything out. So like when
yeah,
you pay for the quickness and the ease and convenience with these like no code tools, but then once you move it to, let's say, lambdas or to Vercel, right, just to Vercel like workflows, cost goes down to like almost like next to nothing.
yeah,
But the downside is like you probably have to have an engineer just to, like, look at logs, monitor the thing. But luckily, if you've already got the workflow down, like in Zapier or something, then you've have like the business logic is there, and then it
yeah,
really is just a matter of like just porting that over to a different platform, and then you're kind of in maintenance mode. And I think I'm sure you've also experienced this. I've experienced this. Like once software projects are past that like initial build phase, that maintenance mode is actually like quite a steep drop off in like activity. Like as an
yeah,
engineer, you really don't need to maintain, like it's not that much of a burden to maintain that going forward, unless you're like constantly trying to add new features to it. But if it's a workflow that was existing before, it probably needs to kind of work basically the same way.
but
So
yeah,
actually it should be just in maintenance mode.
yeah, yeah, definitely. If it's not just in maintenance mode, then something's probably off.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. That makes a lot of sense. Anything else on this kind of topic that you think some parting wisdom that would be helpful?
Not top of mind. I think that just to drill it down, I think that the way that I kind of think about things is, yeah, like the value. I think a good heuristic is I think is a 10x, like a order of magnitude if you're getting that much value. And I think that it's way more possible now than it was pre AI. Like I think AI was really the unlock for that, and just like great tooling. Vercel, obviously amazing, lets you spin up things super fast. That type of like developer experience combined with AI, like you can just spin up things so fast and so much easier than before. Um, and then, yeah, I think it just kind of depends on the company. I feel like you'll know though, I don't think it's not like a rocket science. I think it's just like, if you think about like what's worth it and not worth it, it makes itself pretty clear.
Yeah, yeah. One of the startups we've been working with, they had, it's kind of classic thing. Had a big launch, had now like thousands of people on the wait list, and it's a kind of a freshly fundraised startup, so they don't have a massive team in place yet. And so now, yeah, this like massive problem over their head. There's probably some gold in there that's going to take them to that Series A, Series B in that wait list. Um, but they just don't have the means to like process it, right? And that's where
Yeah.
like, okay, now the problem is obvious. We have to have some type of like solution in here, and it's really kind of custom to our workflow because of like how we kind of put these lists together. Um, Easy example there. It's pretty clear like we probably need something custom here.
Yeah. Yeah. And no platform's going to solve that. I don't think, it's too specific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's it. I think that'll be a wrap for this episode.
Yeah. Great discussion. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one.
See ya.